Welcome, friends, it's the Movie Film Podcast. Movie Film Podcast, enjoy the show. Zachy and Brian are talking about movies. Movie Film Podcast on the radio.
Welcome to Movie Film. It's episode 321, brought to you by Mr. Boy Productions. I'm Zachy Hassan. I'm here with Brian Hall.
Hey, how's it going, Zachy?
It is going.
It is going. This is we're post July 4th. We're hauling through the summer right now.
There is something slightly sad to me about being post July 4th. Because
I know,
right? It's like I feel like the bulk of my summer is over now. That's what it feels like for me.
I know. It's a real marker. I was thinking about that the other day. Actually, we've talked about it on air about how sometimes I forget about the whole. I don't think of the year in semesters and summer vacations anymore, but like you do.
Yep.
You know, I mean, certainly with your kids, but also with you being a professor.
Yeah, so there's definitely, you know, once we get past July 4th, I'm sort of like, okay, I've got a handful of weeks left before, you know, the grind begins anew. And I enjoy the grind, I should say. I'm
Sure.
a fan of the grind, but I also enjoy the not grind portion.
Absolutely. I mean, who doesn't, right? But I will say this to be optimistic: we're still in the single digits of July as we record. So
that is true, and we want to cherish every moment.
Mm-hmm. Let's live for today.
I agree. As we discuss a pretty bonkers summer movie season, which certainly feels like one of the summer movie seasons of yore.
It definitely does. Yep. Especially, I mean, well, I'm very excited. We have The Naked Gun coming up. We have a comedy.
Yeah.
An honest to goodness comedy coming to theaters mixed in with everything else. You're right. It feels like the world is healing a little bit. Well, in some ways.
In some ways.
In some ways.
What have you seen lately other than the thing we're going to talk about later in the episode?
Well, probably one main thing I'll talk about, but I'll say real quick. I did start up Squid Game.
Okay.
Season 3 on Netflix, which is kind of fascinating because when season 1 came out, that was a cultural phenomenon.
It was.
Right? I mean, that Halloween, people were dressing up. I mean, it was so, the iconography of that show was just so immediate and felt like it had always been there in sort of a way, like the sort of MC Escher style rooms that are painted pink and blue and the people in the pink jumpsuits and the masks with the PlayStation symbols on them and stuff, right? It was... And I really enjoyed it. It seems like a show I would hate because it's so sadistic, but something about it, just the ingredients of it were just, I don't know, perfectly calibrated for me to not mind that stuff and just kind of enjoy it. Then you had season 2, which happened only, you know, a handful of months ago. And I feel like there was a little less fanfare for that. Now season 3 has come out, the final season. And I feel like there is like, do people even know this is out? Like it's amazing the how quickly I feel like something that everyone was so into or at least talking about or was, you know, in the culture. And now this is the wrap up. And I feel like I haven't seen anything about it. I haven't heard anything about it. I barely knew that it had just released.
That is interesting. Do you think that, because I'm aware that it ended and, you know, I'm going to watch it with the kids. I don't know that it's
the finale.
Yeah, she watched all of it.
Okay.
Like I said, I haven't seen it, but the rest of the family has, and so they've been into it. But I don't think I don't think I clocked until you mentioned it how there hasn't been a ton of cultural conversation surrounding it.
Yeah, and I guess the main reason I'm saying that is because I was barely aware that it was happening. And it is something that I've enjoyed and I do want to see how it ends. And so I haven't even, you know, you and I traverse the sort of movie internet space and I just feel like I haven't even seen a lot written about it and, you know, even people's opinions or takes on it. And so I was like, oh, that's just fascinating compared to the way that it came out of the gate.
Do you think that partly that's just the Netflix model where they just drop the whole thing and there is no sort of extended conversation?
I do wonder if there's some sort of thinking like we've gotten what we need out of this already. If you're in a Squid Game, you'll find it on your grid when you open up the app. And if not, do we need to throw all this money into this thing when people already kind of know what it is? You know, like I wonder if there is just some sort of math behind that.
I mean, what can I say? That's just some dystopian Squid Game level Right.
I agree. And but well, I'll say real quick, I'm halfway through. It does feel like, a teensy bit of the magic is gone, but because it was so fresh and surprising and shocking when you first watched it.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing something we've sort of seen before where it's like, okay, well, now they're going to do jump rope, But what I think the strength of the show is it keeps coming up with new characters I find interesting.
Right.
Because there's so many characters that basically get eliminated as the show goes on. And I just continue to find myself liking certain people and not wanting them to die. And I think that's why the show's still working for me. And also there's only 6 episodes, season 3. So I'm like, of course I'm going to watch those to see how it ends.
Okay. So you haven't watched the ending yet?
No, actually maybe not tonight, but this week, I'll probably finish it this week.
Okay.
But what I do find fascinating is there was, I don't know if a rumor or it was being teased that David Fincher was going to do a US version.
That's right.
Of Squid Game. And that just felt like, that sounds like a rumor. Right? Fincher's kind of become a Netflix guy, and Squid Game is IP, and it just feels like that's possible, but I'll believe it when I see it. And then sure enough, I don't know if you saw that clip with Cate Blanchett basically playing a version of a character from Squid Game as like a recruiter, basically. And I was like, whoa, this is happening? Like, this is actually happening? Like, season 3, the final season literally dropped in like the last week or two.
Yeah.
And we're already getting someone of David Fincher's caliber spending his time to already remake this thing.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
Isn't Fincher's doing the Cliff Booth movie, right?
That's true. That, that's, I would assume that's going right now.
Yeah.
And will probably drop next year. And my understanding is that he's shooting Squid Game at the end of this year. So,
okay.
Well, you know what? That's funny too, because again, there's certain people where you think, your Spielbergs, your Tarantinos, your Finchers, your whoever's, like they kind of have the thing that they're willing to do and the thing where it's like, well, that's not something I would spend my time on, because I have my voice and I will, because I have the blank check that I have, I'm going to work on the things that are strictly within my voice. And so it's Fincher, I think of as one of those people. And that's fascinating that he's going to be shooting a Tarantino script of all things, and then remaking, this Netflix series. So I don't know. I guess I always keep them guessing.
I guess so.
So yeah. Anyway, I still want to see Elio, by the way. I'm going to throw that out there. I really want to see something original, and
you might be part of a small minority based on how that movie's doing.
Oh, very much so. But like, I still would like to see it, and I don't want to wait for Disney Plus. If I have the ability, I'm going to try to see it in theaters. Just throwing that out there. And I did rewatch something. I wanted to mention this. I saw F1 again.
Okay.
In theaters in 4DX.
Wow.
And
okay.
I'll say this, and I know I've talked about it a little bit, but I wanted to mention it again. Because that's a Regal thing, I guess. Mm-hmm. Do you have theaters like that by you, where the seats shake and it sprays water in your face?
Not nearby.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll say this. I'm kind of curious. I'd be interested if people want to write in and share their experiences or feelings about 4DX, because look, I'm not against it, because if it's something that generates a little bit more money for theaters and that keeps them going and people want that, I think that's great. I enjoyed F1 all over again. It's a really great time at the theater. It's why we go to see movies on the big screen. However, I really didn't enjoy my 4DX experience.
I would imagine so. Like, you describing it, I'm like, I don't know. That it doesn't sound fun.
I'll say this. I've seen a handful of them because my friends enjoy them.
Yeah.
I saw Twister, the 96 one.
Okay.
And it was perfect. Like it jostled you when you needed to be jostled, because they're bouncing around in a truck, and it misted you a little bit.
They throw cows at you.
Yes. Yeah. But it lights up for the lightning, and it misted on you when it was raining. It was just and there's wind going through the theater. I was like, this is what this is for. This makes complete sense. But with F1, you'd think you're sitting in this high-speed vehicle, you would give like a little jiggle or something like zzz, like a buzz, and then maybe jerk you to the right and jerk you to the left.
Sure.
But this, I swear, it was like the seat was trying to kick me out of it. Dude, I was like, I can't think. I'm like holding on to my seat, and I was like not looking at the screen. I was like thinking about my head, and then, dude, when they're shaking champagne because they've won the race, it literally squirted water in my face. And I was like, I don't want that. And then, and then there's that whole race where it's raining, and it just rained for 2.5 minutes on us.
Oh my God.
I was like,
that sounds like an SNL sketch, to be honest.
yeah, like too far. There was a line. but dude, the theater was packed. I literally had to sit second row because it was so full. Everybody, okay. And that's what I'm saying. To each their own. I'm glad if more money to the theaters and people want this, that's great. But I was really glad it wasn't the first time I watched the movie, because I feel like the cinematography of that movie is a good majority of why I love it. Mm-hmm. And I felt like this time I missed a lot of it because I was fighting for my life, like I was like, look, I wasn't looking at the screen. I was trying to make sense of what was happening to me in my seat. And anyway, I just had to throw that out there. And so anyway, my friend recently, Jaws is coming back into theaters in late August, and he went, he just put 4DX or IMAX. I was like, IMAX. IMAX, period.
Jaws, the seats actually bite you in half.
Yeah. Oh, and the best one is there's a bar in the seat that punches you in the back during certain things. So it's literally like in your back occasionally.
Yeah, I don't like any of that. None of that sounds good.
I don't know. Anyway, I just had to throw that out there because I went through it. I have to use this platform to talk about it.
That's what it's for.
Yeah. But you know what though? If there are people who love it, I would love to hear their perspective on it. I don't know. I don't know. It just, we all go to the movies for different reasons, and some people want to be thrown into the movies in ways. Like my whole thing when picking a seat. Actually, sorry, this is a whole pivot, and I actually want to know your answer to this. I want to see the four corners of the screen. I don't care if I'm close. I don't care. Well, I don't love to be too far back, but as long as I can see the four corners of the screen, like the visuals are just the thing that I really, really love being able to take in on top of the story and everything else.
Yeah.
More so than sound and other things. Like I just really want to see what they meant to capture within that rectangle. And so this distracted me from that. Okay. Whereas other people might not matter. It might not matter as much. Maybe they like sitting close to the front and they don't need to see all the corners. They just want to feel immersed. Mm-hmm. That I can understand.
Yeah.
What about you? Where do you like to, when you pick a seat, what's your preference?
So generally middle and screen left.
Screen left. Okay. Is there a reason for that, or that just happens to be where you tend to go?
Just generally, one thing it's just been sort of inculcated in me is that our focus tends to be screen left, and shots tend to be composed more that way. So that's just been my habit. Mm-hmm. And now I'm just old and set in my ways. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I get that. I'd say for us, funny enough, when I'm with my friends, certain friends, we always go screen left. Mm-hmm. But we do this certain row where there's like these bars that you can put your feet up on.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So we're a little bit closer and a little bit more left than some people may want to be. But I've just gotten very used to it. And I just love that I can put my feet up and not bother anybody.
It's where we watched Madam Web.
Yes.
And thank goodness for that.
Yes.
Wouldn't want to have missed any of those four corners.
That's right. I still think of walking out of that movie and that one guy who was in our screening looked at us and he's like, man. Do you remember that? That was so funny.
What else? Anything else you've seen recently?
Well, Zachy, I watched something because I was getting strong suggestions from a close friend that I should wrap up a series that I had begun and kind of walked away from. I finished Andor.
Hey.
Yes, and strictly because of your nudging.
Oh, my incessant pestering.
Well, I was noticing they were getting more and more insistent and more forceful. I was like the during the F1 episode, I noticed even just a little bit of like, so, more so in your voice. I was like, oh, this isn't going to stop. It's only going to escalate. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And this is the honest truth. And I told you this already through texts. I believed you. Like when you said that this was going to be good and worth my time, and even though I wasn't feeling as invested as I would have liked, I knew you were right. I believed you, especially when you think I'll like something. I would say like 9.5 out of 10 times you are right on the money. So truly, it was you nudging me that got me back, and you were right. I really enjoyed it.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I just to go through it really briefly. I mean, I enjoyed season 1. I think it's a slow burn style of a story.
Yeah.
And so I've understood why some people got into it and other people didn't, but I was in the right mood for it. And I enjoyed, seeing a Star Wars story in a different kind of arena of the Star Wars universe with different sorts of characters. So season 1, enjoyed it. Season 2, I don't know if it was just the timing was a little off for me or something, but I just was having a hard time finding my way into it. And I already mentioned this, but Andor runs into these unorganized rebellion, like soldiers, basically,
right.
And which I appreciated. I do appreciate seeing like the early stage rebellion, the squabbling, how unorganized it is. I just felt like the story itself in those first 3 episodes felt a little stretched thin.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was making me a little nervous that I had 9 more episodes to go.
Okay.
Anyway, so then 4 through 6 was what I also watched. I watched basically 1 through 6 together. And 4 through 6, I enjoyed. We got into a little bit of the spycraft of things. There's like a secret device that may be uncovered, so we got to get it back. And that was the stuff I was like, oh yeah, okay, this is good. I'm enjoying this. But I'd mentioned to you, I just wasn't finding enough of a connection with the characters personally.
Yeah.
And so really the only reason for me at that point to keep going was to find out what was going to happen next.
Okay,
and
I see. Okay.
And so that's why when I had an interruption, maybe it was like a couple movies we had to watch or something, suddenly it never became the thing that was top of my list to get back to. The intrigue was good. It was ramping up and it was good, but just other things were becoming more enticing. But then you were encouraging me, giving me crap, whatever you want to call it, every week to watch it. So I finally went back, and then I watched 7 through 9, which I thought were fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what I really loved about it was, and I'm being intentionally vague because for people who haven't watched it, I don't want to spoil certain things. But what I really loved about it was it really gave you like a boots on the ground look at the galaxy in turmoil under the Empire.
Yeah.
Like, what is that really like? And what are the sort of real world feeling ways that the Empire sucks and they're making life miserable? I mean, instigating genocides.
Yeah.
And it for me helped me to better understand in the best way, like why Luke, someone on this distant, sand planet, would feel so compelled to join the fight. Because we know he wants to join. And it's like, of course, he wants to join the good guys. And we can understand that on a general level. But seeing this and knowing what's going on all over the galaxy and how miserable it is and innocent people being killed and the Empire just getting their way and plowing over people. Like, it was really palpable. And I would say gave me a greater appreciation of the Star Wars universe. And so I really enjoyed those episodes. Mon Mothma really, I mean, she's always been an interesting character, but she's got some really good stuff going on in there. Her and Andor mixing together toward the end of that, 7, 8, 9 was really great, thrilling stuff. So that I was like, oh, I'm really glad that Zachy talked me into this and got me back. So
that's great.
Yeah. Then finally, 10 through 12, this had the character stuff I'd been waiting for.
Hmm.
Luthen and Clea, you get like a little bit of a backstory, and I don't know how you would have weaved it in earlier, but if you have the patience to get to episode 10,
Mm-hmm.
it really builds them out in a way that I really loved. You get K2SO in the mix again, and it becomes kind of like Rogue One-y shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just fun spy adventure stuff, and setting right up to Rogue One.
Yeah.
Right. This one leaves
literally-
off right where Rogue One picks up.
It ends and Rogue One starts.
And I would say in a way that doesn't feel like, yeah, Rogue One is an interesting sort of build up to A New Hope. And this is also kind of an interesting build up. I thought this was an interesting build up to Rogue One.
Yes.
It's still adding more pieces to the puzzle of how all these people had to step up and stick their necks out and possibly sacrifice themselves, and become double agents and or die for the cause. All this had to happen for Luke to get to his moment where he gets to blow up the Death Star.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
found it rich and interesting and definitely worth it. So it was a little difficult for me to get into it, but when all is said and done, my brother, he's become kind of skeptical of Star Wars things. He needs a real recommendation after the sequels, frankly, and he loves Rogue One. And he's gotten really into the novels, as I've mentioned. But I felt strongly enough about this that I was like, I know at the beginning you might not be so sure, but I think when you're done with this, you're going to feel like it was additive to your
Yeah.
enjoyment of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, I've seen the whole season twice now, and I mean, I think it's singularly, the best thing that Disney has done when we take Rogue One and Andor together. That's it. It enriches it rather than indulges in a lot of fan service, and I don't mind fan service; it has its place, but. When I look at the totality of what Disney has done with the franchise, I'm like, look, this is. I was going to say this is the way, but I mean, it is the way, though.
It is, yeah.
And I can't remember if I said this on the show, but it's endlessly amusing to me that the genesis of the Andor series was essentially, the Disney Plus folks being like, oh, we should do like. Andor and K2 and have like their adventures together. And Tony Gilroy is like, no, I'm not doing that. Right. And we got something so much richer as a result. And we do get some K2 in there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the what we get in the lead up to that is so much more fulfilling. I mean, what you said, episodes 7 through 9, I mean, that's just some of the best Star Wars I've ever seen, period.
Yeah, I told my brother, I was like, I recommend it all because I think it's helpful to have the earlier stuff. But if you must, at least watch 7, 8, and 9.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope people will pay heed to your recommendation.
Yeah, my late arrival to the party.
Hey, we got some listener letters here, Brian.
Mail call!
I believe you have a letter for me.
18,000 letters, all addressed to Santa Claus.
You got mail.
Okay, here's a note we got from Alex Naom, who says, "G'day, mates. I don't know how many Australian listeners and or Patreonites you have. However many that is, could never be enough for such a fine program. Thank you."
Yeah, thanks, Alex.
That's really nice. But I was chuffed to hear you mention The Dry in your F1 episode. You may recall I mentioned that's the franchise starring Eric Bana.
Right. That's right.
He says, "It is such a great little mystery film. The performances are great. How the mystery unfolds is intriguing. And I love how the environment is portrayed as oppressive and suffocating with how dry and isolating it is. The cast is pretty impressive, too, with how much they've permeated pop culture. You have the Hulk and Hector, Eric Bana, Ra's al Ghul from Arrow, Matt Nable, the Mouth of Sauron and the gyrocopter pilot, Bruce Spence, Mon freaking Mothma. Hey, you're just saying.
Yeah.
Genevieve O'Reilly, and the creepy artist brother from Wedding Crashers, Keir O'Donnell. That cast makes me want to say, in my best Brian impression, I mean, come on, what's not to like?
That's funny.
That's you, Brian. That's I see a T-shirt of you with kind of like your hands and like a shrug emoji. Like, what's not to like?
Yeah, I send that emoji a lot.
I'm very curious to hear what you two think about Jurassic World Rebirth. Oh, you'll get our thoughts. A personal emergency made me leave the theater and miss everything after them starting to abseil down a cliff. But what I liked about the film is how the dinosaurs were filmed with such reverence. I thought that's why you hired Gareth Edwards. The action sequences were really well done and made the dinosaurs really menacing. It was probably the most edge-of-your-seat Jurassic movie since The Lost World. Okay, I'm gonna...
Dude, I am on the edge of my seat to talk about this movie with you.
Yeah, so Alex went on to say a little bit of a spoiler, and I'll hold off on that.
Okay, yeah. I was trying to read it real fast. Yeah, gotcha.
He closes by saying, thanks as always for the stellar work you two do and how much time you dedicate to entertaining and informing us. Best wishes to you both and to all the listeners out there. Warmest regards, Alex. Thank you, Alex.
Yes, thank you very much, Alex.
Here's one we got from Charles Landy. This is on Facebook. And this is in regards to our commentary track for Jurassic World, the first film that we just dropped. He says, I genuinely do love this big, dumb movie, but what makes me include the word dumb in that description is the dialogue. It's terrible, and it's everywhere.
It's terrible, and it's everywhere.
I don't know why you would put Burt Macklin FBI in your movie and then give all the lines that were meant to be funny to an annoying nothing character like Jake Johnson.
This is pretty good.
I love all the faux military jargon that Chris Pratt gets to rattle off. I've had Raptors got a new alpha stuck in my head all week. But come on, he's a funny guy. Let him be funny. Yeah. When the younger brother inexplicably asks how much the island weighs, but how many pounds? It just feels like words that human beings do not say. The older brother is just a dick and a borderline creepy stalker dick who already has a girlfriend back home to boot.
Thank you. That is
true. That is accurate.
That's what I kept saying. He's like, it was directed so weird. Like,
that was weird. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
That said, though, Colin Trevorrow does a bang-up job directing and keeping it moving like any good Jurassic movie should. For me, he's got James Cameron disease. He's a good director who can't create three-dimensional characters that feel like normal human things to save his life.
Interesting.
Anyway, hey, fun movie. Raptors got a new alpha.
That's great, Charles. I know I hear that about James Cameron a lot. I can't say I entirely agree. Although he has his awkward moments. Right. I do feel like he also reaches really heartwarming moments.
I agree.
I mean, Titanic off the top of my head, Terminator 2, of course, off the top of my head. Even True Lies.
I agree. Aliens.
But I do appreciate, I was reading something about this new Jurassic. I haven't seen a lot of reviews for the new Jurassic movie, so that's why I'm very curious to talk about it with you. I did see one thing that was giving Trevorrow a hard time, and I was like, look, man, I don't know. I didn't see the Book of Henry or whatever it was called. And I know, the last Jurassic leaves something to be desired for some people. I don't even remember it. I can't even comment on it because I don't remember it very well. Mm-hmm. But I always feel in my mind that I don't love Jurassic World. And then when I rewatch it, I go, oh, that's actually not as bad as I remember.
Yeah.
And I think we commented several times on how it's like very, not just competently directed, but pretty well directed.
I would agree.
Throughout. So I appreciate Charles calling that out because I do think he did a pretty good job.
Yeah. After we recorded our commentary for Jurassic World, I went and watched the other two films in that trilogy. And I think that Charles's critique of the Pratt character is addressed in the second one, in that he is a little more pratty, get some funny lines. It's weird how and we've talked about this, how there's been this weird, I don't know if it's just an online phenomenon only, or people have decided they hate Chris Pratt.
Right.
And I don't hate him. I find him generally charming.
Yeah, no, same. Yeah, I think we might have mentioned this, but sometimes he's on fire when he's slotted into the right character.
That is true.
And I don't think that he can just play any leading man,
Right.
because then he's not allowed to do the thing that he does best.
Mm-hmm.
So I think though that what he does do well, he does very well. And I would like to see him maybe in some more, aloof comedic kind of roles again.
Like, remember when everyone and their cousin was fan casting him as Indiana Jones?
I do. Yeah.
Right. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
Right. I was like, nothing, no shade, no cap.
No cap.
Towards Chris Pratt. But I'm like, he doesn't have that specific indie mojo,
Yeah, well, you've heard that. I mean, that's like the rumor floating around right now, right? That Lucasfilm is, thinking about rebooting.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, okay. So, first of all, of course they're thinking about it. Like, why wouldn't they be thinking about it, right? And I'm sure what has precipitated those thoughts even further is the fact that last video game they put out did pretty well, right?
Yeah.
I what I've heard is they're gonna let the franchise sit for a little while.
I think that's a good idea.
Right. I have no illusions about the idea that indie is going into a drawer forever. I've always said, look, at some point, this is an IP, and it will be revisited.
Right.
And yes, that probably means at some point it gets recast.
Right.
I would say maybe don't do it while Harrison is still around.
Yeah, I don't want to. It's hard for me to think that way,
right?
For what that means, but I think you're right. Yeah, as long as he's around,
there's just something. There's something unseemly about that.
Yeah, well put. Yeah,
right. And I honestly think, like, look, you could put out 8 more of those video games, and people will play them.
Yes.
Like, why not just do that?
Right.
Do something animated, like not CG animated or not like weird Uncanny Valley animated, but do something,
No, I say go full Polar Express. Like do a Dead Behind the Eyes.
Go full Final Fantasy, The Spirits Within.
Right.
With the CGI Ben Affleck voiced by Alec Baldwin. It's just full on nightmare juice.
Yeah.
I think that I view it as an inevitability. At some point, there will be an Indiana Jones not played by Harrison Ford. I don't think you need to do it right away. And I remember saying so much 2 years ago. Like, in a way, it in a weird way, it helps that the last movie tanked so badly that it maybe makes them slow their roll a little bit.
Right.
As far as pressing ahead with more Indiana Jones.
Right.
I always go back to my conversation with Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote Raiders of the Lost Ark, and so he certainly has some skin in the game. And I said, can you see anybody else playing that role? And he says, well, I don't envy them, number one. But number two, why not just create a new thing? Indiana Jones was a pastiche. Do another pastiche.
Right.
We don't live in that reality, unfortunately.
Isn't that funny though? We've talked about this sort of where, speaking of pastiches, I mean, when those Indiana Jones movies were coming out and we were kids, those filmmakers were riffing on stuff from when they were kids.
That's right.
But we weren't familiar with that stuff. Right. So indie felt fresh to me. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and it wasn't like our parents were like, oh, that's the total, that's like those old serial, like nobody was queuing those up those weren't still playing on TV. They weren't being re-released in theaters.
Yeah.
But now we live in a world where Indiana Jones is like 44 years old.
Yeah.
And still, I mean, I saw it's playing in a theater tonight near my house.
Amazing.
You know what I mean? So it's never really gone away.
Yeah.
So it makes it more difficult than to do a Indiana Jones pastiche because Indiana Jones is still here with us.
Yeah.
It's kind of a unique thing that wasn't happening when these things were first introduced.
Right. I know I've said this before, but the time to recast Indy was after The Last Crusade, if you're going to do it. Once you came back almost 20 years later and you're like, hey, here's Indy as an older man. And then again, hey, here's him as a, octogenarian. you pretty much locked in Harrison Ford into that role,
Right.
which I don't have a problem with. I also think like Harrison Ford is the kind of movie star we are very unlikely to ever see again.
Yes.
And so why give whichever, like Indy 2.0, why saddle him with that baggage? You're not Harrison Ford.
Right.
Why you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's too high a hill for most actors to be able to climb.
Yeah, it makes me think of the James Bond upcoming film, and
Yep.
they've listed some young men who are in the running for it, and my reactions were from no to who, and I mean, it just illuminates the fact that there really hasn't been another crop of superstars.
Yeah, not that us oldsters are familiar with, certainly.
Yeah, but I mean, that's true, and that could have a lot to do with the fact that we don't have a monoculture anymore. Because, in the monoculture when we were growing up, Tom Cruise, Harrison Ford, Julia Roberts,
Yeah.
Sandra Bullock, but there isn't anything like that. So yeah, they maybe that's a good point, Zaki. Because if I clicked on these people's Instagrams, they may have like 100 million followers, and I'll be like, well, I'll be damned, But what does that mean to the movie-going world? Maybe something, maybe nothing. I don't know.
I think your point is very well stated in that who are the new superstars, right? Like using Tom Cruise as an example. Anyone between the ages of 80 and 8 knows who Tom Cruise is. My daughter is 8. If you she'd be like, oh, that's Tom Cruise.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you show that picture to somebody in their 80s, they would know who Tom Cruise is.
Mm-hmm.
Give me another example like that of anybody who's come up in this century.
Yeah, right.
Doesn't exist.
And there's nothing wrong with that necessarily. That's just the way that the culture is moving forward. But it's just interesting.
But it makes it harder to have these blockbuster events that really transcend any one specific demographic, right? I mean, there's a reason that, for example, the Mission Impossible movies work in a way that very few other franchises do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, because the franchise we're discussing today is an example of a franchise that works in a way very few franchises do, but that's not because of a singular star,
Absolutely. And I was just going to bring up, as long as we're talking about Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible, I mean, you have, is it Rogue Nation, the one with Jeremy Renner?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there was
Ghost Protocol and
Ghost Protocol. Sorry. And there was the thinking that, maybe Cruise will eventually step aside and Renner will step up as the lead guy. And Renner, he is great in the things that he does, but those movies are Tom Cruise.
Mm-hmm.
That's Mission Impossible, and which makes me think it'll be difficult if they try to keep Mission Impossible going without Tom Cruise. I mean, the star power is a big part of the juice of those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Well, that's very comparable to the Indiana Jones situation, right?
Yeah.
Good luck. What actor do you want to slot into that role?
Yeah. I mean, at this point, Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones, or Indiana Jones is Harrison Ford.
And Tom Cruise is Mission Impossible. It doesn't matter if you have another agent, right? It's like, no, we want to see Tom Cruise hanging from stuff.
Right. Yeah.
That should be interesting. I suspect at this stage the Indiana Jones news is just hushed whispers,
Yeah.
But I do expect it to get more real as more time goes by.
Yeah. And for now, I really enjoyed the video game, The Great Circle, and I would love them to make more of those over the years. That would keep me satisfied with my Indiana Jones needs.
Yeah. Well, and I'm repeating myself here too, but what's wrong with it just being 5 movies and that's it? Like that's it. The story ended,
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Like, it's okay.
But it's an IP. It's an IP.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's another IP, Brian.
Yes.
I got a new trailer that just dropped this past week for the remake of The Running Man.
Yes.
So this is directed by Edgar Wright, and it stars Glenn Powell in the lead role. Why don't we play some of the trailer audio here first?
People on these games never come back.
I'm not trying to get myself killed, so kiss my ass twice.
Right there is why you can win this game.
The rules are simple. Survive 30 days with the entire nation hunting you down.
And get your family out of Slumside for good.
I'm gonna come back here and burn this building down. I promise.
That's the spirit.
Okay, so first of all, where are you at with the original film from 1988?
You know what's funny? This is one of those movies I never saw as a kid.
Okay.
I've heard people mention it, just the title, like as a 80s Schwarzenegger movie.
Yeah.
And a couple years ago, I thought, how have I missed this? So I watched it. I'm going to be honest, I don't even really remember it very well.
It is kind of forgettable, right?
Yeah, but it's a cool idea. I mean, especially in the 80s. I mean, now it doesn't feel too far from the entertainment we have anyway.
Yeah, that is true.
I mean, well, we should say, right? It's based off of Stephen King's story.
Writing pseudonymously, I think Richard
Bachman.
Bachman, there you go.
Yep. And basically, I mean, would you say dystopian? Like future? Some sort of future.
Yeah, it's pretty dystopian.
Yeah. And there's a game show where people are trying to kill them. And the people get to watch on television as these prisoners try to evade these people trying to kill them and win the game.
That's the gist of it. And so that the original, and it was 87, not 88, but it is a perfectly cromulent movie.
Yeah, sure.
Totally fine. It's very much of that era. It's peak Schwarzenegger.
Mm-hmm.
And, it came out the same year as Predator. I would say Predator is the superior Schwarzenegger joint from there. It's totally fine. But I think that this remake is exactly what you should. I haven't seen the movie, admittedly, but exactly the approach you should take with remakes is where you're like, okay, what's a movie that has an interesting premise but doesn't necessarily fully live up to its premise?
Mm-hmm.
Boom. Right?
Totally. And it's not like some sort of classic,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I don't know that. Like I remember when the remake of Total Recall came out about a couple of years back, 13 years ago. It was like, why? Like the original one did it.
Well, and you remember all of the things from it.
Exactly.
So then you're just waiting for them to either repeat it or try to improve upon it, which is probably not going to happen. This one, like I said, I watched it a couple of years ago and I don't remember it very well.
Yeah, it's directed by Paul Michael Glazer, the original, and he was Starsky of Starsky and Hutch fame, and he did a functional job, and it's like, I don't dislike the movie. I think it's totally fine for what it is, but you say, oh, Edgar Wright has a take that has me intrigued. I'm generally a fan of Glenn Powell based on what he's done recently, so I was already like intrigued. I see the trailer, I'm like, oh man, this looks like it could be a lot of fun.
Totally. I mean, Edgar Wright is very interesting. I feel like I'm always on board for an Edgar Wright movie. Mm-hmm. And because at the very least, they're going to be a fun watch, right? I remember Last Night in Soho was one of those movies that I so badly wanted to like. And I feel like I admired it more than I actually enjoyed it because like the story just kind of loses itself as it goes along and just loses its way and just becomes something like, oh, okay, I guess that's it. But the premise is so intriguing and the execution is so unique and watchable in Edgar, which is Edgar Wright's style. So yeah, like this kind of a story, like a futuristic game show where someone's running literally for their life as everybody watches along from someone who's got like those, crazy super stylized, visuals and even just down to the sound design and the editing that Edgar Wright does. Sign me up.
I agree. Yeah. So this one comes out the beginning of November. It actually comes out the same day as the new Predator movie, I believe.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which seems like one of these movies should move.
Yeah, they feel like eating each other's audience.
Yeah. So November 7th. But I am excited to see that.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of funny though too. I mean, if they the originals both came out. Original Predator and the original Running Man came out the same 1987, and here we are now, the same date in 2025. Sequels.
Weird, right?
Yeah. Well, not sequel, a remake, I guess.
Yeah, the Running Man remake came out roughly the same time in 1987, November 13th, and this is November 7th. So,
yeah,
getting all that nostalgic Running Man audience. We better get a cameo by Jesse Ventura as Captain Freedom.
I watched it. I don't even remember that.
I remember the various the hunters or whatever they're called. Like one of them is called Sub-Zero.
Oh, funny.
And then there's the electric guy, right?
Oh, I swear, man, it went in one eyeball, and I'm trying to do the one ear out the other. I don't know how that works.
I kind of applaud the novelty of having Richard Dawson, of Family Feud, play the evil game show host.
That was, yes. So it should be like Steve Harvey in this one.
Right.
Right.
And it's just Schwarzenegger being all Schwarzenegger, because the movie starts with him. He's like, he's sent to prison wrongly.
Mm-hmm.
Because, the fascist government is telling him he's like a helicopter pilot, and they're telling him to fire on these protesters.
Mm.
And he says, "The hell with you. I'll not fire on unarmed civilians." And then, and he gets his one-liners. He kills Sub-Zero. And then he says, "Hey, Killian, here's Sub-Zero. Now, Plane Zero."
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
That's hilarious. Maybe I should rewatch it.
Well, I feel like we may want to commentary track that one, before this new one comes out.
That could be a lot of fun. Right? I bet it's like 90 minutes.
Yeah. Well, let me look it up. What's the runtime? It says 280 minutes. No, I'm it's like 100 minutes soaking wet.
Perfect.
That might be a fun one.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll be talking about The Running Man this fall. Hey, Brian, we got some headlines.
Extra, extra.
What a scoop.
Okay, well, just to start things off, a lot of famous faces and names have passed away since the last time we talked, and I wanted to pay them their due respect.
Yep.
We lost Michael Madsen.
Yeah. That was very sad. Surprising.
Michael Madsen, kind of one of I feel like he was so indelibly linked to Tarantino that like he just sort of had either Tarantino was able to transfer some of the coolness of his movies to Madsen, or Michael Madsen just transferred his own coolness to Tarantino.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly in Reservoir Dogs. I mean, he's unforgettable, especially. I mean, he's great in Kill Bill and everything else, but like, I mean, him doing that dance with the razor in his hand. I mean, that's the thing you remember from that movie. And who else could pull off the like kind of cool, very, very sadistic and menacing balance that he does in that scene? It's incredible.
Yeah. Michael Madsen, I should say, he was a native Chicagoan, born September 25th, 1957. So exactly, 22 years before me in the very same city.
Wow.
And of course he was older brother of Virginia Madsen.
Yeah. I saw she announced it, didn't she?
She did. Passing? She wrote a very, very poignant statement talking about just everything that he encompassed, but capped it by saying, "I miss my older brother," which ultimately, I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
But what a career, right? Obviously the Tarantino films, but in addition to that, he was in War Games. He's in The Natural.
Wow.
He was in the original Species. Donnie Brasco he's in. Thelma and Louise, of course.
Right. Free Willy.
Free Willy, yeah.
I haven't seen that in many, many years, but seeing that now, I'm like, oh, I do remember that, him being in that.
Yep. He was in Die Another Day as kind of, they were setting him up to be kind of the Felix Leiter character for Pierce Brosnan's Bond.
I kind of remember that.
Yeah,
it's been a while.
not a huge role in that film, but enough to be like, oh, there's more coming, which that unfortunately didn't happen. But a remarkable career, a lengthy career, and he talked about how he sort of just ended up becoming an actor. He would have been happy being a bricklayer, and yet what he brought was something so singular.
Oh yeah, and having worked at Bob's Burgers, there's a little bit of lore around Michael Madsen. Basically, I don't remember what season it is. This is before my time, but the story keeps getting handed down. There's an episode where Tin Cup is playing, I guess, and like Kevin Costner in the Bob's Burgers universe. Kevin Costner's in there, and he has this line, and Michael Madsen plays Kevin Costner for this one line. And the reason that is Madsen, his driver, dropped him off at the wrong building one day.
Okay.
Which happened to be the Bob's Burgers building.
Get out of here.
And one of the employees on the show, one of the crew, saw him and was like, "Are you Michael Madsen?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I mean, we're like recording an episode. Do you want to do a line?" And he's like, "Sure." So they come in, they're like, I have him be Kevin Costner. So he does like one line in the episode, Michael Madsen, and then he went on his way.
That's hilarious.
Isn't that great?
Amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
Remarkable career. And he is one of those actors whose work is going to be watched forever.
Yep. Definitely.
So he will be missed. Michael Madsen gone at age 67.
Mm-hmm.
Also, this one was surprising. Julian McMahon has passed away.
Yeah. I'm 56.
56. So he had been dealing with cancer for a little while. It was a private battle with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
But we were just a couple weeks ago. We were talking about the show Nip Tuck in the context of I don't remember how we were talking about Nip Tuck. Oh, we were talking about Dylan Walsh in Congo.
Oh, that's right.
And how he was just a few years removed from Nip Tuck. And Julian McMahon, really, like, that's the movie that launched him into a whole different level.
Mm-hmm.
He played Christian Troy, the devil may care plastic surgeon.
Yeah.
But before that, he had been on Charmed and various other things. Probably best known in the movies for having played Dr. Doom in the Fantastic Four films in the 2000s.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Recently, he was on FBI Most Wanted. And you talk about like the perfect kind of role for an actor like Julian McMahon was being the lead in a procedural.
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally.
Because they rest on the charisma of the main character.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a guy who was always charismatic.
Yeah.
I actually just saw him a few months ago in the Residence. Which it's the Netflix series about a murder in the White House residence.
That's right. Yeah.
And he played the Australian prime minister.
Oh, interesting. Which
is doubly appropriate because his father was the Australian prime minister.
Oh, how funny.
So his father or his grandfather, he is descended from from Australian, I was going to say royalty. That's not right.
Yeah.
Political royalty,
Yeah.
But just a charming guy. And I think the most important thing is always with these things, what we hear in the wake of his passing is all the people talking about what a decent person he was.
Yeah.
Which is always, ultimately that's the legacy you leave behind.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a very nice tribute by Dylan Walsh from Nip Tuck, which I wanted to share. And this is this is a statement to the New York Post. And he says, "Dear Jules, I know you like to flout the boundaries, but this time you've gone too far. Let's meet at the Biltmore, have a martini, and we'll talk this through. We'll laugh hard. The valet will bring up your Hummer and right behind my hatchback with car seats and bird shit out the window. We've laughed at this too many times. Now it's just us. You'll kiss me on the cheek and say, 'Bye, Dill.' Goodbye, Jules."
Oh, Jesus, make me tear up.
Right? This is what he had told Deadline. He says, "I'm stunned. We rode this wave together and I loved him. My heart goes out to Kelly and his daughter, Maddie. Jules, I know you'd want me to say something to make you smile. All the inside jokes, all those years you had my back, and my God, we laughed. My heart is with you. And I've been just seeing variations of that from everybody.
Yeah.
Alyssa Milano, who played his wife on Charmed, said something very similar. And, it's just, I mean, just a really unique presence,
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I would occasionally dip into FBI Most Wanted, and I was like, I mean, it was a great role for him, and he left that show, I would imagine, because of his illness,
right?
And Dylan McDermott took over on that, but regardless, it's just look, 56 is young,
Oh yeah.
That's a hop, skip, and a jump from where we are,
I know,
and these type of things do sort of make you uniquely cognizant of how short a span we have.
Absolutely.
Even with the best of circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Julian McMahon, he will be missed. Here's someone else who passed away. Mark Snow.
Yeah, composer.
The composer Mark Snow, right? So he was 78 years old. And I was thinking, I was like, Mark Snow had a remarkable career that stretched from the 1970s all the way to just a few years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if nothing else, he will live forever because he composed the theme music for the X-Files,
which is incredible,
right?
Yeah, one of those iconic themes,
right? Like that's a piece of music that even people who haven't seen the show know that music.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And certainly for me, I remember being in high school when the X-Files came on and paying attention to Mark Snow's name because of that music. And so as a result, I became aware every time he did other stuff.
Right.
So he did music for Pee-wee's Playhouse, and he did music for Falcon Crest, all this other stuff in the past. But in moving forward, for me, it was, he did music for Smallville. He did music for this terrific show, which nobody watched, called Nowhere Man, starring Bruce Greenwood, the Twilight Zone in the early 2000s, and just a dependable television composer.
Holy cow! Ernest Saves Christmas. That was a Brian Hall 10-year-old classic.
Look at that. You were imbibing his work and you didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's all over the place. That's amazing. Very diverse.
What a legacy.
Yeah.
So that too, again, cancer.
Yeah.
But a remarkable run.
Mm-hmm.
And then one last thing I wanted to mention real quick is Jim Shooter passed away, and he too was relatively young. He was 73, and I suspect you don't know Jim Shooter.
No, I had to look him up.
Yeah, so Jim Shooter was editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics during the late 70s into the late 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And really an important and controversial figure in the history of the comic book industry. But when we look at some of the highest highs that Marvel achieved during the 80s, it was on his watch.
Okay.
So things like Frank Miller becoming a prominent creator happened under Shooter, where he became writer and artist of Daredevil. The original Secret Wars series, which is about to become a movie, in the next couple of years, that was written by Jim Shooter. Jim Shooter started writing comics at age, get this, 14.
Wow,
14. So he was a he was a kid, and he would be reading comics. So he had surgery or whatever, and he's in the hospital, reading comics, and he realizes that these Marvel comics, this is like early 60s, are better than these DC comics. And so what he does, again, he's like 13, 14, he draws up DC comics that are written in the style of Marvel comics, and he sends them to the editor at DC, Mort Weisinger, who's the Superman editor, and that guy's like, hey, these are pretty good. And he reaches out to him, and this is all via telephone, so he doesn't realize that this is like a little kid.
This should be a movie.
Right? Isn't that amazing?
It's a great story. Yeah.
And so that's how he got into the game. He would just write these comics, Legion of Superheroes and Superboy, etc. And then eventually, as he got a little bit older, he went over to Marvel, and he set that. What you have to realize is in the 70s, Marvel had just musical chairs when it came to editors in chief, because he had Stan Lee, he was the big guy. He vacates that chair because he takes more of a corporate role, and then you have people coming in who are more creatives, and there's the sense of like the wheels are starting to come off the wagon.
Mm-hmm.
Books are late and whatever, and so in the late 70s, Shooter takes over and he institutes strict deadlines, and he institutes essentially a fill-in policy where if a book is running late, then we have a fill-in issue that's slotted so that we don't miss a deadline. This is like kind of basic stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this was not happening. And so all of that's helped kind of right the ship, and royalties came in under his watch.
Wow.
So a lot of good stuff he did. I want to be clear, he was a controversial figure because he was also very, very polarizing in terms of the people he worked with, and so I think any remembrance has to include that.
What do you mean, the people that he worked with?
He had very strong views about how certain things should be, and I think. My sense is it's one thing if you're trying to fix things that are broken. It's another thing if things are working fine and you keep trying to fix them.
Okay.
And I would imagine that was part of his tendency.
Okay.
Right. But regardless, left a very big mark at Marvel, and then he later went on. He continued writing. I mean, he wrote. He was back at DC in the mid 2000s and stuff, and he was in charge of various companies. But the history that he helped bring about, again, I've said this before, with regards to Peter David, the writer who passed away a couple of weeks ago. I don't think you get to our conception of Marvel as we know it today without the work that Jim Shooter did in the 80s.
Wow.
So the big mark that the impact is going to be felt for a long time. I also, I think that the Spider-Man's black costume, right? Like that doesn't happen without Jim Shooter.
Wow.
I remember reading about how the Disney folks reached out to him to give him some kind of a payout for essentially to not say he has any claim to the black suit.
Really?
And he's like, yeah, it's fine. I'll sign whatever. Like, no, you don't. Like, you already paid. I got paid for it back in the day. I'm not owed anything beyond that. Which agree or disagree with that sentiment, I can respect him taking that position.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? That's not nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So an interesting figure, and certainly an important one in the history of American comics.
I'm happy to have learned about him. I'm glad you brought him up.
Yeah. So he gone at 73, again, cancer. I think the thread this week is F cancer.
Yeah, seriously.
Because goddamn.
Yeah.
All of them, they will be missed. We have more headlines, however.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, here's something, Brian. I'm very curious to hear what you think about this. Michael Bay. We're fans of Michael Bay here, are we?
Yes. I mean, I can laugh at the same time as admitting that he still knows how to dazzle.
Certainly, with the right toolkit, he can build you something impressive. Mm-hmm. Well, he may be headed back to something that I don't know if it'll dazzle you, Brian, but it's looking like Michael Bay may be in the process of reuniting with the Transformers franchise.
Look, Transformers 1 is a lot of fun.
It is.
I've seen all of them. I don't remember much from
them. You've seen all of his movies.
Yeah. Oh, there's only one I have not seen.
Yeah.
And you
didn't see Rise of the Beasts, I don't.
Right. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. And I think I like the way that you said that with the right toolkit. He knows how to dazzle, because I think the problem with Transformers was I think the first one was well calibrated, and then they just got bigger and more dizzying, and just when I think of those movies, I'm just picturing nothing in my vision but like clinking metal parts colliding into one another and not knowing what's going on or caring what's going on. And they just became so overwhelming that I was like, I don't even know what I'm rooting for here. I don't, right? So it was kind of cool when he stepped away, and then he made Ambulance, which we've talked about. It didn't really hit, I guess. But it was cool to see him do his thing a little bit more, on the ground level again, like the earlier movies we like of his, like The Rock and stuff. That's what I want from him, frankly. Yeah. I wish he would tell more, I don't know, like less fantastical stories and just tell some great action, make some great action movies. Well, I'm happy that Edgar Wright is making The Running Man, but I would like to see Michael Bay make something like that. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I want to see him do. I can't say that I'm looking forward to more of the thing that I was getting exhausted from him, which is the later Transformers movies. But I don't know. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of anything he did with that franchise after the first film.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably a portion of the audience that's popping all kinds of confetti.
Sure.
Because what you realize is, well, that first movie came out, 18 years ago.
Wow.
Right. So there is a whole demographic that's come of age with Michael Bay's vision of Transformers.
And, it's a classic to them.
It's like, it's like Spielberg coming back to Indy or something,
Sure. Yeah.
I am not in that boat.
Uh-huh.
I think the franchise was doing a good job of moving away from his influence, and I think that was a good thing.
Yeah, Bumblebee. I thought Bumblebee was great.
Bumblebee was good. I mean, I wasn't crazy about Rise of the Beasts, but I could follow the action at least. Honestly, I thought Transformers 1, the animated film from last year, that was pointing the direction of where this franchise should be headed.
Isn't that the way? Like, it was really fun and good and well done, and it had a great heart to it, and nobody saw it.
Nobody watched it. Yeah. So I think we have a situation. My understanding is that Michael Bay went to Paramount.
Interesting.
Rather than them seeking him out, but I do think this probably dovetails with their needs. But I'm like, look, nobody watched his last movie, right? Which was that 10 years ago already?
No, was it?
It might, or it was like 2016.
Holy cow!
Because Bumblebee was 2018.
Okay,
so it's probably 20. Because we had Age of Extinction. See, why do I know this, Brian?
Well, you know what? That's why we're here. That's why we're here.
Why do I need to know this? 2014 was Age of Extinction.
And
I think 2016 was The Last Night.
Okay.
I think that's right. Or 2017. Maybe that was 2017. Because Bumblebee came out like right away, right after.
Last Night 17, yeah.
Okay. That's in fact, I know that's right because that was the same year as Fate of the Furious.
Oh, okay.
And they're both about like, oh, is the leader of the good guy suddenly a bad guy? That was like the premise of both, and it was fake in both.
Right.
Although Optimus Prime was more animated than Vin Diesel, weirdly. Yeah, so supposedly he's got some idea. If I were to guess, it will be a loving tribute to our armed forces with some animated robots stuck in edgewise.
Right. That's hilarious.
I don't, I'm kind of like, dude, why don't you just make those, like.
Was it 13 hours? Is that a thing?
13 hours, right? Yeah. That was, just go do that. I think, when you say Edgar Wright, like do something like Edgar Wright is doing. I'm like, I don't think Michael Bay is capable of doing what Edgar Wright does. I don't.
Well, no. I don't think he is either. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying a remake. Look, if I had to choose a remake of The Running Man, I would go Edgar Wright every time. But I'm saying that is at least a concept or a type of film. If Michael Bay is going to continue to make things, I'd prefer to see something like that from him. A guy on the run and action set pieces.
Yeah.
Versus just his huge, over the top, confusing visual effects robot smashy movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Or heck, like Armageddon or something. You know, like I even if those are not, the characters are ridiculous and the emotions are way over the top. Like I want to see him kind of do something like that again, personally.
Yeah.
Not just more of the same that was already tired.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. My point is, I don't know that this is as much of a slam dunk as they necessarily think.
It is funny though. You would imagine it could possibly be Paramount that was coming back because they're having a difficult time figuring out how to make Transformers hit the way that they want. Speaking of IPs, they own it. It's waiting there if it's milked correctly, to make a lot of money for them. And he's the one who was able to do it. So it makes sense if they were like, hey man, like help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. But interesting. He feels like he's got more to say.
I wonder. I don't know that he had that much to say with say 4 of the last 5 movies.
Yeah, I agree. But
so I don't know what we're adding to that mix.
Yeah.
But that is, hey, watch this space, because I have a feeling if that movie does come out, Brian will be, just chomping at bits to talk about it.
I'm having flashbacks now. I forgot. Like when a new one would come out and then we had to do an episode. It was like,
yeah. What I remember most is sort of existential angst, Brian. Which is my favorite action figure variant.
I was gonna say, like, if I can give it to myself, that guy doesn't come out a lot.
No.
I'm pretty open-minded. I try to show up for each thing. But I mean, I remember the one with Idris Elba, the Stand movie, or not the Stand.
Dark Tower.
Dark Tower, which, by the way, I would love to see a great version of that. But I remember knowing that one wasn't going to work, or having a bad feeling about it. I remember feeling real dread. I think I kept taking a picture of myself as I was walking to the theater to see it and sending it to you. And it's like, me upset leaving my place, me upset at a stoplight, me upset entering the theater. I don't remember how I knew that I was anticipating it being bad, but that's my memory of it. And then, yes, the Transformers ones, like, they're just the same movies over and over and over again. And how much more can we do this?
Yeah. Yep. Well, I remember saying in my review of the second one, I was like, I aged out of the demographic while watching this movie.
Right.
I entered a Transformers fan and I left the theater an old, bitter man.
I want to see a new young filmmaker's take. The Transformers are cool. They're interesting. You can get great action set pieces out of those things.
Yeah.
I just want to see someone else's take.
Well, I said this before, Travis Knight, who did Bumblebee, one thing that I appreciated about his take was he clearly grew up with Transformers, and he had that level of familiarity, which I could intuit, just based on the film that we got.
Yes, and it had a real big heart to it, is my memory too. It was kind of like E.T.
honestly,
meets Transformers in a weird sort of way.
100%, yeah. And Travis Knight, by the way, is directing the Masters of the Universe movie.
Oh, okay.
Which is why I have at least some hope that that'll be something interesting,
Same, yeah, that feels good.
Yeah, but hey, like I said, we'll have more to discuss if that story develops. Here's some I was intrigued by this. We have a new Spider-Man movie coming out next year.
Wow,
Spider-Man Brand New Day.
Okay,
that's next July, something like that. July, like basically a year from now, July 31st.
Okay, that's going to be a busy time for Tom Holland. You got the Odyssey in a year from now, too.
Well, as it happens, it's also going to be a busy month for Tom Holland's co-star in the Odyssey, John Bernthal.
Oh?
Because he is joining Spider-Man Brand New Day as his Marvel character, the Punisher.
Wow. Which began as a Netflix show.
It began as a Netflix show spinning off of Netflix's Daredevil show.
Right, which it in that moment seemed like those characters would probably never reach like movie status.
Exactly, right?
Wow, okay.
And this is sort of full circle for the Punisher because he started out as a Spider-Man villain back in the 70s.
Ah, okay.
So this is entirely appropriate. But John Bernthal, I'm a John Bernthal fan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same.
Seems like a decent dude.
Mm-hmm.
Also a great actor. I love you saw the trailer for the Odyssey, I'm assuming?
Yes. Yeah.
Right? The trailer is just waves and John Bernthal being like, tell me about Odysseus in the most John Bernthal way possible. And I'm like, I want to know about Odysseus too. God damn it.
I know. Well, they're still shooting, which is kind of interesting. So this is just the footage they have so far.
That's all you need, if you ask me. Just give me 2.5 hours of John Bernthal shouting at people to tell him about Odysseus.
Yeah.
And I will leave that theater a happy man.
Yep.
I love the idea of, you've never seen the Netflix Punisher show, I don't think.
I haven't,
right?
no.
Have you seen any of those Netflix Marvel shows?
I think I watched Daredevil. I saw Jessica Jones. There you go. And maybe one other that I don't remember. But no, I wasn't like steeped in that Netflix.
Sure. Well, it's a lot. I mean, each season is like 13 episodes and stuff. Who's got time for that shit? Right? But regardless, fairly R-rated is my point. Right?
Yeah, right.
And so certainly the idea of tossing the Punisher in with an extremely PG-13 character like Spider-Man.
That sounds like a fun energy, doesn't it? Those two together.
I like the idea of them bantering back and forth, kind of Deadpool and Wolverine energy.
Totally.
Right. And that was my thought. I was like, I would not be surprised even a little bit if Deadpool and Wolverine was partly what led to this pairing here.
Yeah. It makes me think of Terminator 2 in a way. Also, you can't go around just killing people.
Yeah, right.
Kind of energy.
That's right.
That sounds fun and very different.
Very different. So I what I've also heard is that Mark Ruffalo is in it as the Hulk.
Okay.
So I don't know what's going on in this movie.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But I am curious. It feels like it a little bit, right?
Yeah, but I love where we left off with what is it? No Way Home.
No Way Home,
right?
Yeah.
Where the spell has been cast and nobody remembers who Peter Parker is, and it was, man, that was really emotional to me. Like I remember it was very sad, his friends not recognizing him, and so then he goes and gets his little apartment, and he's just going to be, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah, just grounded.
Yeah, so I'm curious where we go from here, where that all goes, if he's going to try to reconnect with his friends or whatever, and having him bounce off the Punisher. That sounds cool and different.
Well, and I do kind of love that Tom Holland and John Bernthal themselves, their MCU destinies are intertwined because they were making a movie together back in the day called Pilgrimage, and they were both in the midst of their MCU auditions.
Oh, huh.
So they were like helping each other.
Oh, that's great. Wow.
This is according to John Bernthal. This is what he said on Jimmy Kimmel Live. We did Pilgrimage about 7 or 8 years ago. That was where both Tom did his audition for Spider-Man and I did my audition for Punisher. We actually made each other's audition tapes on that film.
I love that.
And this is he says, I was like, there's probably a lot of people that want to be Spider-Man. I mean, you're super talented at all, but the odds are kind of against you. But yeah, let's make the tape. He just had this belief, and when you get to know him and see how he shows up, there's a reason why he's the movie star that he is. And this is, he says, I gave him the note. Tom, maybe you should run up that wall and do a double backflip and then start the scene. And he was like, yeah, you think I should do that? That's not too much. And he says, I was like, I don't think any of these other fools are able to do that. And in fact, he did that. It's not that I take responsibility for him, but like a little something.
Dude, you think any of these other fools doing that? That totally sounds like John Bernthal, doesn't it?
What I love is that right there is a sneak preview of what we'll probably get as Spider-Man and the Punisher,
Oh, yeah, that's totally a great point. Yeah.
Bernthal, he came back for Daredevil Born Again. He's in a couple episodes of that.
Okay.
And now they got him doing like a special. Remember that Werewolf by Night special that they did?
Yeah.
They're doing something like that, but it's the Punisher, and he's like writing it.
Wow. Okay.
Bernthal. So he is terrific in that role. I mean, it is a fantastic marriage of actor and character.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm all about seeing him continue.
No, it sounds great.
Yeah. Kind of an interesting niche in the MCU all to himself,
Yeah. Wait, sorry. Now I'm just thinking about timelines. When is the new Avengers movie coming out?
Avengers it was supposed to be May, right?
Okay.
and then they pushed it to December.
Okay, so same year, but later in the year.
Yeah, so I think next year we got Spider-Man and Avengers, and that's it. I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
those are big ones. I think that's going to be a good year for them.
I think it will be. And by the way, we got Fantastic Four coming out next week, or 2 weeks from now. And so once again, we get to have the media ask with bated breath whether the MCU is over.
Yeah, right.
Because it's not, we play roulette every couple months. It feels like,
Right.
So reload the deck for that. But that's next summer. Hey, there's a new movie in theaters, Brian.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't we talk about it on the other side of this?
And now we're pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
And we are back. And you know what else is back, Brian?
What else is back?
Why, it is Universal's, dare I say, most indestructible film franchise in their coffers.
I think so.
We are, of course, talking about Jurassic World, now in rebirth form.
Rebirth form, yeah. This is, I assume, what is the start of a third trilogy?
Presumably.
Presumably,
right?
Yeah.
Although it is blissfully self-contained, which is just like kind of nice.
I agree. I kind of like that. And I was thinking about that. Are we going to spend more movie time with these characters, or is this a one-off? Or I wonder what the plan is.
I'm very curious about that. Jurassic World Rebirth opened surpassing expectations.
Mm-hmm.
It made 140 million over its 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I think what was fascinating was if you watched the box office, every day the estimate kept getting higher.
Right. Yeah. Exceeded expectations.
Which in this day and age, you know what? That's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Reviews are a little bit more mixed from what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't dug too deep, but just a glance at Rotten Tomatoes says that this is about par for almost every Jurassic movie, not including the original one.
Yeah, I think it's around like 53% critics, and audience is somewhere around 70.
Okay, that sounds about right.
That feels about right.
Mm-hmm. It's certainly a feather in the cap for Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, who apparently is a longtime fan and had been asking for years to be in a Jurassic Park movie. I think she waited around long enough to get the right role for her. I
agree with that. Yeah, she rather than being a romantic interest, she became the action lead.
Mm-hmm.
Gareth Edwards also. This is a feather in his cap. I think it's a pretty impressive opening.
Yep. Speaking of Rogue One,
second only to Rogue One, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have seen this movie twice now.
Oh,
because I have enough kids where we have to go in shifts.
Really?
It's basically shift 1, shift 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, you and I have not discussed this at all.
No, I literally have no idea.
Well, who wants to go first? You go first. I go first.
You go first. I go first. Okay, I'm gonna go first because I think people probably already know what I'm gonna say.
Well, I think people already know what I'm gonna say.
Actually, I wasn't sure because of something you said earlier.
Uh-huh.
I would call this a mixed bag for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think, look, Jurassic Park 1 is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's one of those movies that is like, it's imprinted on me. I saw it when I was 13, made an enormous impression. It's the movie I've seen the most in theaters. In its first run, I saw it 8 times with my brother. And I've seen it on re-releases. They're playing it at the Bowl, Hollywood Bowl, in a couple of weeks. I plan to go, and see it with a live orchestra. I think it's a masterpiece of adventure filmmaking. It's majestic and filled with wonder and spectacle and brilliant, inventive, masterclass thrills. And it has wonderfully defined characters who are interesting and have points of view and shine individually and together. I realize that's kind of an impossible bar to measure any movie against, let alone any sequel in a series. I mean, Spielberg's own sequel in the Jurassic Park series didn't live up to the high bar of the first one. So with all that in mind, though, I do have a certain level of expectation with this series. And so with Rebirth, it felt a bit like a mixed bag for me. I mean, I feel like the characters are pretty one-dimensional. It's kind of interesting. It feels like two movies ideas that they had that they couldn't decide between, and they smushed it into one movie. With like one set of characters and another set of characters that just sort of awkwardly the movie toggles between them, and sometimes puts them together, and sometimes splits them apart. Mostly, I just didn't really connect with the characters as much as I wish I had. And at the same time, dinosaur action. You know what I mean? Like it's undeniable. So I did find myself wishing that a lot of it was stronger than it was. And at the same time, I did enjoy, there was one moment I noticed, I hadn't even realized I was doing this, but I was leaning forward in my seat smiling. And I realized it. I suddenly noticed it about myself. And I'm like, well, I mean, there you go. You know what I mean? Like, and it was
so without spoiling anything, I found myself doing that in the scene where Jonathan Bailey's character first encounters a real dinosaur.
I have thoughts about this.
Okay.
You might not like them.
Okay.
I
really liked that scene personally.
I wanted to, and I couldn't help. My cynical brain took over a little bit because I thought the beginning of this movie, the first scene is dinosaurs are so commonplace, they're boring.
Yeah.
And literally in the streets of New York, there's a dying dinosaur, holding up traffic. And someone's like, oh, damn it. Like, I'm going to be late for work. So I was confused about people's feelings about the majesty of dinosaurs. I was like,
but not his character. I mean, we're pretty clear where
he's in New York, right? I mean, so he hasn't encountered one. Like, just
I took it to mean this is them as they're supposed to be in their glory, in their territory, like living, surviving.
See, now that is a good point, because that was a selling point to that character about like, why should I go on this dangerous mission? It's like, well, don't you want to see these things you're passionate about in their turf?
Yeah.
But it's funny because that was the moment in the movie. They keep withholding the theme, the John Williams theme from you.
Right.
And so then they've got this valley, and then there's all the dinosaurs, and then they just, blast the Jurassic Park theme. And I couldn't help but think, to me, it felt like an afterthought. Like they realized that they had made a whole cut of this movie and forgotten about it. And we're like,
the theme, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And just like, that's how it's, and they're like, here. And then like, the majesty of dinosaurs, na 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 na, na. Like it felt so shoehorned to me that moment.
Brian,
I know, but I couldn't. That's my feeling, and I would never take that away from you. I wish I had felt the way that you had felt in that moment, but I don't know. And like the characters too. Like I just literally, like, Scarlett Johansson plays action lady, and like Mahershala Ali is like mercenary guy.
Yeah,
and there's like, and the professor, and like that's it. Like they don't have arcs. They don't, like, they're just kind of doing their thing. And I was like, I just expect more. When you have the Jurassic Park name, I would like something a little bit more. So this is one more thing to cement what I'm trying to say. This movie. We've got the King Kong movies. We got the Godzilla movies. We've got all the kaiju movies. I go to Jurassic Park because I expect a little bit more verisimilitude.
Okay, that I agree with.
Right? Yeah. Like,
and
we'll
talk about that.
Like that's what the Jurassic brand is to me.
I agree with that.
Verisimilitude with dinosaurs roaming through it. And how do real people in real cars and real blue sky above them and, what grass beneath them, how do they react to that? I go to the Godzillas and the King Kongs for the janky looking visual effects and down is up is down, it doesn't matter kind of feeling. And this one starts getting more into like mutants.
Right.
And monsters, and take away the Jurassic Park theme from that one moment that for me felt shoehorned. And is this a Godzilla movie? Is this a Jurassic Park movie? Is this a, you know what I mean? Like it started to, you know, like it didn't feel. That's why, sorry, dude, all my thoughts are coming out in confusing fashion. But when I rewatching Jurassic World, which, like I said, in my memory, I feel like I don't love as much, but when I rewatch it, I kind of do like it. I think they do a great job of capturing the verisimilitude, the wonder, you know, the majesty of the dinosaurs, and the really fantastical threat of being like a human being on planet Earth with a dinosaur chasing you. And I feel like this one starts to veer into a little bit more loosey-goosey territory away from Jurassic Park, and it just becomes like Jurassic adjacent and like a pretty good monster film.
Yeah, so a couple points.
Yeah, please. That was a lot of talking. I want to hear everything you have to say.
So first of all, I don't know if you remember, a couple weeks ago we were when we were talking about Congo, I was we were going off on a tangent about Jurassic Park, and I said, you know, Jurassic Park is really just a reskin of Westworld.
Yeah.
Well, Jurassic World Rebirth is a reskin of Congo.
Yeah,
because that's what you realize is, that's what I like. Halfway through, I was like, oh, this is Congo.
Holy cow! Yeah, I didn't think that, but you're
about
right.
It. ScarJo is Laura Linney. Mahershala is Ernie Hudson. Jonathan Bailey is Dylan Walsh.
Mm-hmm.
Rupert Friend, he's Tim Curry.
Wow, that has to be intentional.
They go off into the wilderness. They encounter some mutants to get this thing for an evil corporation, and then they make a decision about that thing that's at odds with the evil corporation. I don't know. I'm just saying.
David Koepp, we're on to you.
I don't know if that would have been as clear to me had I not just rewatched Congo.
Well, I did, and it wasn't clear to me. But you know how I felt about Congo, so fascinating. I almost want to rewatch it now with that in my brain.
Well, and that's what kind of made me appreciate the movie. I was like, oh, this is like Gareth Edwards doing Congo, you know?
Yeah, and you know, I will say I'm a little jealous that you've seen it twice. Because
sure.
I can't help but go in with the like, look, I know it's not fair, but like I said, it is a Jurassic Park film. So I am going in with a little bit of a bar in mind. And I know it'll never touch the first one, nothing will. But I just felt like a little bit of the wonder was missing. I feel like a little bit of the majesty was missing. I feel like the characters were just a little too bland.
Yeah.
I wished for a little bit more out of them. And so I couldn't help but feel those things and be a little let down by them. And that sticks with me as I'm watching. But like I said, at the same time, that the first attempt, you know, to fire the dart at the mosasaur.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's a really thrilling sequence.
Yeah, it is.
All the action is pretty good. Like the raft. I mean, I'm talking about things in the trailer because we're not spoilers yet. But the family on the raft, that was really like tense and exciting. So that stuff does play. So that's, I guess, if we're trying to tell people whether or not to go see the movie, it's like I have to be honest about the things I felt let down about. But like so it depends on what you want. Like if you're fine with seeing something that's just okay, but like you want to see some dino action, well, this is going to provide that.
Okay, so just to put a pin in that point, we now have, separate from the first movie, we have 28 years of Jurassic sequels.
Yeah.
As a data set. And the one unquestionable point that emerges is we will never, ever match that first movie.
Yes.
It is a unicorn.
Yeah.
And in a way, at least for me, I'm not speaking for you, that is remarkably freeing for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm never going to get that. And if I want that experience, I can pop on that movie and I'll feel exactly the same way. When Alan Grant says they're moving in herds, they do move in herds. It gets me misty every single time. Everything else, you know what? Give me 3 great dinosaur action sequences and one scene where we go, ooh, ah. Give me those, check those boxes for me. I'm probably going to be on board.
See, and I love that. And this movie does provide that.
Not only does it provide that, I think in terms of dinosaur action scenes, probably the best since Steven Spielberg.
I don't remember the others well enough
There you go.
to confidently remark on that, but I will say that I did really like the set pieces a lot. I think they set up really cool situations and they utilized them well. Like I said, like, a kid in a raft and a T-Rex,
Yep.
Coming after you, and then eventually the water gets deeper, so then it can't run as fast, but then it can swim. Like I was like, oh, that's what I'm here for. That's. I just wish that they could, elevate the, the in between stuff a little bit more. But that stuff is cool. I can't deny it. And sorry, not a spoiler, but the the thing at the end too. I won't really get into the details of it, but the convenience store stuff and having those dinosaurs stalking around. I mean, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that the characters are a problem, right? Because ultimately you watch a movie like this and you're like, do I want to revisit these characters? I already love revisiting the world.
Yes.
Right. So we're going to come back in a couple of years. I suspect we will, based on how this one did, and see what else is going on in the Jurassic universe. I'm all about that. Do I care about seeing, Henry Loomis again? I mean, not particularly.
But we could have.
I mean, I agree. I think that's a problem,
Yeah.
Just to be clear, if they do bring him back, I'm fine with that too.
Yeah.
But the thought I had is, I think this is an actor-proof franchise, and that's great for Universal, right?
Right.
Because they can just swap out the leads every couple of years, and people still show up. But the movie alludes to the Henry Loomis being a student of Alan Grant, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken, that's the one like outright like continuity thread that this movie gives us,
right?
And I'm like, what if this was Alessandro Nivola's character from JP3?
Remind me.
Billy, right? He's the guy who went on that whole journey, and he stole the raptor eggs.
Oh yes.
And then he's alive at the end, and I'm like, that's something. Like, you can give him the same business, but there's at least a kind of an audience connection there,
Right.
I'm not saying we needed that, but I'm saying I think continuity is useful. So why not lean into it when you can?
Yeah.
Rather than, we're shaking the Etch-a-Sketch, everybody's brand new.
Yeah.
I think ScarJo is perfectly fine in the movie. The character serves her function.
Yeah.
But I don't know that her emotional journey is particularly. I don't really get her emotional journey, to be honest.
I don't either. I mean, she makes up her mind about something at the end that feels like it could have had some impact.
No, it feels very like this is where the plot needs her to go.
Yeah. So why not set her up a little
right.
differently in the beginning to make that decision go, oh, that's great.
Yes, I agree with that. So that's if I were to look at my issue with the movie, it's that I didn't dislike the characters. I just didn't feel particularly invested in them. But I really liked all the dinosaur action. I thought there was a degree of verisimilitude that I really appreciated, having just watched Jurassic World Dominion the day before, which is just green screen city.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, and it's very distracting because I think Edwards does a much better job of really making it feel like this is we're seeing dinosaurs in the world.
That's his thing, right? I mean, like incorporating visual effects into very real, earthy sorts of landscapes and making right.
He is the master of scale. Also,
yeah.
There are some sequences in here that I loved how you really get a sense of how big the monsters are compared to the people, and that's something we really haven't gotten a ton of in this franchise. Other than in the first film and to a lesser extent the second film.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of directing, I would say this is the best directed since the second one. And I don't care about the characters coming back necessarily.
Yeah.
But I want Gareth Edwards to come back.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. It's character wise, they came close with Mahershala Ali's character.
I liked him.
Yeah. I mean, they give him. We can get into it, but they give him like a detail at the beginning that feels so like, okay. You like, so kind of got that? That's his thing.
everybody got that.
Right. And then later, of course, it comes into play and dictates his decisions. And you see it coming a mile away, but I'll be damned if it didn't like touch me.
I agree with that. I think what I'm acutely aware of, especially after the opening weekend, is the Jurassic franchise just needs to give what's on the tin, which is dinosaurs chasing people and eating them, and people will show up. It's remarkable because both times I watched it, the joint was packed.
Yeah,
and it was full of families.
Oh, that's nice.
And I'm like, this is. It's just time tested, you know. It's the most like safe kind of scare.
Yeah.
That you can take kids to, and they'll scream a little bit, and then they'll laugh. And I'm like, you said this about the Fallen Kingdom. It's a theme park ride, and I'm like, that's what people go to these movies for. They just want a theme park ride.
Yeah,
and so judging this on the theme park curve, you say once the roller coaster stops, you say, man. Whew, I would say for me personally, it gave me that.
Right.
And you know, ultimately, I do kind of grade it on a curve, and that is unfair, but I'm grading it on a curve with all the ones that are not the first one.
You know what though? But I don't think that's the wrong way to do it. You know, I mean, and maybe that's what I have to do. I have to watch this the first time and be a little disappointed at what it isn't. And then, you know, probably watch it a second time with the curve.
Right.
And then go like, oh, well, you know, but that raft scene's really fun. And, but you know, I will say, I do stand by it. I don't love the veering into straight up monster territory kind of thing, because it feels like these movies, I mean, beginning with Jurassic World, it's like they're trying to get ahead of what they think the audience is going to feel by being like, well, no one cares about dinosaurs anymore. Dinosaurs aren't scary. We know that. So that's why we are going to push it, you know, in world. And also, speaking meta, you know, as a movie, we're going to give you bigger and more teeth. And I'm like, no, dude, I like dinosaurs. Like,
right.
And my favorite sequences in this one, I think, were the, like I said, the T-Rex and the raft, because it's the T-Rex.
Yeah.
I know, I recognize that, and I don't want that thing chasing me. And then the cliffside thing. With the I don't know if they're pterodactyls, whatever they are, but like
the pterosaurs,
yeah, and those were really, they look like dinosaurs to me, and they're really scary, and I can picture myself on the cliffside, and what would I do if those things were trying to peck at me?
Yeah.
But then when you get into like this big mutant looking, you know, Cloverfield meets a xenomorph.
I was gonna say it looks like a Cloverfield monster. Yep.
Yeah, or like the Rancor. I think I read somewhere that Gareth Edwards said the Rancor was an influence. I'm like,
Rancor / xenomorph / Cloverfield, and you got this. Yeah.
Yeah, but then I'm like, well, that's, to me, that's not.
I agree with you.
Jurassic.
100%. I agree. I and actually, why don't we do spoilers?
Yeah, let's do it.
Spoilers.
So we should say, I mean, the real villain of this movie, what you realize is it's a Snickers wrapper.
What did you think about that? Did that work? Did that feel a little silly?
Well, it did feel silly, but I mean, you just kind of roll with it. My thought was, it seems like not a great design if something that inconsequential can just F things up so royally on such a mass scale.
Yeah, I mean, there are a few things in here. Speaking of like hand wavy, like it doesn't make sense to me how a rapper could go inside an automatic door and blow it up.
Yeah,
you know, that's like a little bit. And then there was like the moment in the convenience store thing where they see the waters going toward that grate. Yeah, and I was like, wow, I don't feel like they're gonna fit through that. How are they gonna do that? And then it just basically waves its hands and like cuts away, and they're like, now they're through the grate. Got it? You know, like it does that like a handful of times, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But
well, chronologically, the prologue of the film is set in 2010, so 5 years before Jurassic World.
I don't even know if I got that. All right.
Yeah, because it says 17 years ago. The movie itself is set in 2027. And so that sort of puts in place some of the stuff that's going on in Jurassic World, where the Indominus Rex is the final result of several years of them trying to experiment and create these mutations.
Mm-hmm.
So it's at least it fits chronologically with where that happens in the story. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like, oh, we screwed up so royally with the Indominus and then they kept going after that. You know?
Right.
It's before that. But no, I agree with you. That was my thought watching the climax, certainly the second time, where I'm like, that's not a real dino. It's the Distortus Rex is what it's called.
I saw it was called the D-Rex. I didn't know that's what it was. Okay.
Distortus. And it's just this horrific looking, Cloverfield of a thing. And that was my thought exactly. I'm like, it's not a dinosaur though. It's just like a movie monster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think in our Jurassic World commentary, I made mention of the fact that they had been, between movie 3 and Jurassic World, they had been all these ideas, and one of them was these human dinosaur hybrid type things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I said, look, I think we're going to end up there at some point. The longer these movies go. And I feel that even more strongly now, having watched this movie, which I think is unfortunate.
Yeah.
I think that and I've said this before, what I like about the Jurassic films is being able to jump back in every couple of years and just kind of see where's the world now.
Yeah.
And I can't say I was crazy about this movie sort of wiping away the last movie, which ends with essentially dinosaurs are just all over the world.
Right.
And then this one starts like, yeah, but they're mostly dead now.
Right.
And I'm like, well, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Oh, we don't have Isla Nublar anymore, but we, now they're all on this island now. I'm like, we're just doing the same thing then,
Right.
But you roll with it, I guess, because it's just it's kind of, maybe it's like a universe breaking problem if dinosaurs are everywhere.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Yeah.
But going back to what I was saying before, I think that the staging of the action sequences and everything, I mean, it was just much more visceral and engrossing than we've gotten in some of the certainly the last one. Like I think objectively the Jurassic World Dominion is probably the weakest out of any of them. And I give that movie a little bit of a pass because it gives me those original characters again, but the movie itself is like not awesome,
Okay.
I think this is better because it's at least giving us something closer to what we sort of expect from these movies.
I will say I really do love the setup, where it's just like, okay, well, we could get something that would help, the medical world if we can extract these things from these dinosaurs. So that's illegal to get near them. So we're going to have to sneak in there and we'll get like a really tough mercenary types and a scientist. And like, that's your good ragtag gang.
Mm-hmm.
Then step into this dangerous terrain and try to extract this stuff for the good of humanity. That's a really new, interesting thing to happen in the Jurassic Park world.
Yeah. And it's a pretty decent progression from where things were last time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because in universe, we're dealing with the fact that InGen is no longer a present tense company.
Right.
And so you've got all these other companies who are trying to, find a way of monetizing the work that they did. And that all tracks. Rupert Friend, who plays the corporate guy, he is, in the parlance of Brian Hall, Johnny Mustache Twirler.
He really is.
Pretty much from the jump.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing. You kind of realize that's what these movies do. They give us that one character who you're like, man, I can't wait for him to get his uppance.
Yeah. Did you feel that way about the boyfriend?
Yes. Initially.
Yeah, same.
Initially. But I'll admit, I got invested in him as we progressed.
He was interesting. He started off like over the top obnoxious.
Right.
Like in a way that it was hard for me to even believe someone his age would behave in front of like a girlfriend's father or whatever.
Definitely that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was thinking, I can't wait to watch him get eaten. And then when he dived off the boat without hesitation after the girlfriend, I was like, oh.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And then I was like, well, it was worth making me hate him to make me check myself in that moment.
Well, what you realize is that they're putting you in the exact same position as the dad.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And let me just say, I loved the dad in this. I thought he was a really good character.
Me too. I wanted to bring this up, this family, because this is literally what I was trying to say earlier was like, this is two like movie ideas, where you got a family who's trying to just do a boat trip across the Atlantic or whatever it is. And then they accidentally veer into dinosaur infested waters and get on this island and have to deal with it. And they have their own dynamics going on. And the other movie is, these mercenaries trying to extract dino blood. Right.
Yeah.
And they bump into one another. But I really did enjoy this family. I thought they were, and maybe that speaks to what I'm saying that I like about these movies is like real people encountering, they don't have machine guns. They just have their wits and they have to discover things and figure out how they're going to get out of situations where they're behind a rock, but a T-Rex is on the other side of that rock. Mm-hmm. And I enjoyed.
Well, this might be an appropriate time to go back to the letter we got from Alex, who was mentioning something vaguely spoilery, and I think it's applicable to what we're talking about. He says, I loved how lived in the island felt. There's a few moments where you see in the background a dinosaur approaching to attack one of the characters, and also with how Isabella, the little girl, adopts a baby Triceratops. Having those dinosaurs appear on screen in a way that wasn't so stagey made it feel really authentic. And I totally agree with that. I think that there was a different level of authenticity here as compared to the last one that I appreciated.
Yep.
I think that the third act would have been just as effective if it wasn't like mutant dinosaurs, I
agree. I wish they'd just believe in themselves. Not feel like they have to,
because on the boat they're being attacked by Spinosaurs, and it was freaking terrifying.
It was awesome. Right? Yeah. And then I don't know, I guess I don't know my dinosaurs, but the whole thing in the convenience store with whatever those things are, I don't know if those are hybrids or
those are mutated.
Yeah. Okay, but they seemed a little more dino-like at least, right? And so that was really fun. I mean, I'm going to be honest. There was a little part of me when they were in the aisles, and I was like, "Oh, this reminds me of the kitchen sequence." Same sort of thing where these people hiding behind aisles while underneath you can see the foot of whatever creature stalking, and it doesn't even reach half the height of the kitchen sequence. You know what I mean? Like, there's no.
But you know why though? Because the kitchen sequence is the kitchen sequence, and you saw that when you were 13, and like.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but I just feel like there's more moves happening in the original. You have the kids rounding corners seconds before the velociraptor pops its head through a shelf, and the spoon falling down, alerting the raptors to where the kids are, and Lex using a reflection as a fake out, and the soap that spills on the floor, and Tim and the raptor are sliding around and making us clench, worrying that Tim will be able to get away. There's so much going on in that scene, the original scene, that I feel like entirely holds up tension-wise to this day. So I think maybe it was a little bit of a mistake to evoke that scene here when it doesn't end up either matching it or at least coming up with some new clever maneuvers in this similar location.
Well, this was littered with Spielberg homages. I mean, the thing with trying to shoot the mosasaur with the thing. I mean, that's clearly, Edwards doing a Jaws riff.
Yeah, which is very cool. I like that a lot.
Effectively done. I will say, this movie, I would have elevated a whole letter grade if. Remember when they're locked in, like the door thing is locked, and they're trying to get out, and the little girl squeaks through, and she has the if she looked at it and she went, I can do this. It's a Unix.
Yeah,
that's what we needed. Yeah.
That's what was missing.
That's what was missing. I think that the climactic thing with the Distortus Rex, the scene. Here's the thing: when the Loomis character, when he fires the flare, and then like the helicopter turns around, and in the fog you see the Distortus grabs it. That's really well staged. It was very effective.
Oh, totally. I mean, Edwards is a great director,
right? That's what I'm saying. Like I think he's such a good match for this franchise. I'd like to see it get back to, no pun intended, the DNA of what it was originally.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the presence of mutant dinosaurs, I don't know how you unring that bell.
Yeah.
I just think we're in it now, and that's what's somewhat disappointing to me, because I don't think you need that, you know.
Yeah.
And going back to what we were saying before, there's that thread throughout where Jonathan Bailey is telling Scarlett Johansson, like, oh, you know, why give it to the corporation? Like, why don't we, you know, give it to the world or whatever. Once he puts that out there, I was like, well, that's how it's going to end.
Mm-hmm. Same.
Like, you know what I mean? There's no version where she's like, no, we're actually giving to the company, right?
Yeah.
Obviously. And once you see Johnny Mustache Twirler, like, almost let the girl die.
Yeah.
You're like, well, 100%. They're not going to, you know, like,
yeah.
They have so telegraphed the ending. There's no suspense.
See, and more of this is coming to me now. So when I think of like the original one, and I think of like when Timmy with the fence, you know, and you think he's going to die, and then there's that really sweet moment where Grant pats his head and he's like, you know, little Tim, you know, piece of toast, you know, just like those little human moments. And even in Jurassic World, when we revisited that, you know, the brothers dynamic where the older brother's so aloof and kind of a jerk. And the little brother's like in tears, like over his parents' divorce, and the way that they come together, and the little brother wants to hold his bigger brother's hand at the end. Like, I would like to know how our characters are feeling about things from moment to moment instead of just bouncing from moment to moment. I guess I kind of expect that out of this series. I don't expect it out of the Godzillas. I don't expect it, but I do expect that here. Right. And so going to your Scarlett Johansson thing, I would have liked if maybe she was a little more, I mean, we get the hint that she needs the money, but maybe she's the type of person who would never give up the money that she's going to be given. But then at the end, it's a tough decision, but after everything she's been through, she's learned to do the right thing and give the medicine to the world, or like, you know what I mean? Like, just wring that stuff out a little bit more. And it might've elevated it like an entire letter grade in my brain.
But the problem is inherently, like, they don't make it a choice.
I know, that's it. Like, yeah, like the person who's going to pay them's dead, so there is no choice.
Well, that too, but he's also a piece of shit.
Yeah,
right.
Well,
like,
sure.
If think about it, if he makes a case that has its appeal beyond just, hey, a 10 and 6 zeros after it.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, I'm going to say 10 million, not that much.
Dude, I was sitting there like, am I counting wrong?
Yeah, that's what I was doing. I was like,
did you really?
Yeah, I was like 10 million? I was like, 100 million? I was like, 10 million is not enough for what she does in this movie.
I thought, and then I was like, well, it can't be 100. That's a lot. But
I was like, 10 billion? You know?
Dude, I'm so glad I'm not alone in that.
Yeah. So, but I'm because if you remember early in the film, Rupert Friend tells her, like, oh, you know, your mother might have saved her life or whatever. Yeah, and she's like, look, if you get personal, I'm leaving, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, why not have him make a legitimate humanitarian argument?
Mm-hmm.
That no, do you get what I'm saying? Like,
I do, yeah.
Because the problem is, once Loomis is like, hey, why don't we like give it to the world? That's like a third of the way in, and you're like, well, that's how it has to end.
Yeah,
right. So the movie is hinging on a decision that we already know the answer to.
Yes,
and that's a problem, because what makes the first film work is that it's Alan Grant's emotional journey.
Yes, I'm doing the like praise hands, like, yeah,
you know,
yeah,
you know, and this doesn't give us characters who are comparable in that way. And I think the opportunity was there with the Loomis character. Out of all of the new ones, I liked him being a paleontologist and stuff, because those have been our heroes before, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really get on board with a merc, you know.
But I would love to see a merc who like is just in it for the money, but then decides to do the right thing because of something personal or something she learned along the way.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I think they are decent people. We see that because they get the SOS, and they're like, we're going to go get them.
I loved that. I love that it wasn't even a question.
Exactly. And you know, it's funny, when that happened, this is true. I was like, I know Brian loves that.
Did you really?
I did. This is true.
I love that she was so unwavering. Like, it wasn't a question. She's like, no, we're going. that direction. Yeah.
I knew that when we talked about this movie, that would be one area where you and I would be like, isn't that great? You know,
that is so funny. Yeah, that was good stuff. And then along those lines too, to give credit where credit's due. I mean, the Kincaid, Ali's character.
Yeah.
You know, so now in spoilers, he lost a child.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, we don't get the details, but it's alluded to. And so then he becomes very protective of the little girl in that family, and he's willing to sacrifice himself at the end. Loved it. That stuff. And even, him, I was like a little surprised that they seemingly killed him for a minute. It just didn't feel like that movie, but I was okay with it. But then when he came back, I could see someone not being on board with that, but I was like, nah, I prefer this.
I agree with you.
I want him to be okay. But that, I love that. I love that. And any more of that would have been great for me. With the other characters too, getting their own business where they, like we keep saying, their arcs or learning something.
See, I think ultimately where the movie ends. Oh, by the way, at the ending, we get the thing with the dolphins. That's just like the birds at the end. I kind of like that too. It's like it's echoing the birds at the end of the first movie.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's like, well, it's inevitable. There's going to be another one. Do I care about another trilogy with these characters? Not particularly, but if we were to intertwine with pre-existing characters in a new configuration, I might be interested in that.
Yeah.
I do think that this story is self-contained enough that you don't need any of them to come back.
No.
And I might be fine with that too.
But, again, I mean, going back to what we keep saying, like, I bet they could have, if they had juiced them up just enough.
Yeah.
We could be like, oh, I want to see what that person's up to now, but I don't think they're interesting enough for me to wonder.
Right.
Which is kind of a bummer.
I think this was the problem with the prior trilogy, right? Look, the Owen character, the Claire character, they were there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we followed along because we were told to.
Right.
But I know me personally, watching Jurassic World, I was like, what's Ian Malcolm up to?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
And I didn't watch this being like, but what's Owen Grady doing?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's me.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. Like I can't help but feel those things and wish that some of the things were stronger. And I wish I could let those things go and just enjoy what's in front of me. But I can't help but think about those things and wish there was a little bit more character-wise, basically. But you're also right. Like if you're coming for new dino action, there's some good dino action here.
It's true. We got hot dino on dino action.
Yeah, some. Yeah.
There's plenty of that. Yeah. And bottom line, I think the fact that this franchise is very, very much bulletproof at this moment is reassuring in a way, because at least to me, it says, well, they can try again in a couple of years, and let's see how that goes.
I'll be there.
Right. And again, I'm sanguine about the fact that first film is The Shining City on the Hill. I don't ever expect to get back there with anything that comes after it.
Same. I just hope they'll always be just slightly better than any of the King Kong, Godzilla thing. I expect them to be more than that.
Well, if they could do something on par with Godzilla -1, I sure wouldn't complain.
Oh yeah, I thought of that movie.
Yeah, I mean that was very Spielberg-y, right? I mean that you can tell that did owe a debt to Jurassic.
Absolutely, great characters, great human story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So give us more of that.
Yeah.
All right. So I think my sense is I liked it slightly more than Brian.
I'd say mixed for me, and it seems like you probably mixed, leaning positive.
My view is they got on base. I wasn't expecting a home run.
Yeah,
but I don't mind where it is and where it left us, and I'll look forward to discussing the next one a couple of years from now.
Me too. I can't wait already.
So there we go. So hey, let us know your thoughts about Jurassic World Rebirth, or your thoughts on our thoughts, you can email us at moviefilmpodcast@gmail.com. You can also hit like on our Facebook page, facebook.com/moviefilmpodcast, and message us there. As always, please go to Apple Podcasts and leave a review, leave a star rating. Also, if you're listening on Spotify, please leave a star rating there. We also have a Patreon page, Brian.
That's right. If you head over to patreon.com/moviefilmpodcast and hit subscribe for only $5 a month, you'll find every commentary we've ever done and every episode moving forward absolutely ad-free. Our free feed will always be available, but this is our way of providing what we believe is the most satisfying way to enjoy the show. So without random interruptions and ads, just bumping into everything we're trying to do here. Plus, your subscription goes a long way in helping to support us and helping to sustain producing the show. So if you're interested in Abel, please head over to patreon.com/moviefilmpodcast and hit subscribe. We'd be very grateful.
There we go. And with that, on behalf of my partner, Brian Hall, my name is Zaki Hassan. This has been Movie Film 321. We'll catch you next time. Thanks, folks.
Welcome, friends. It's the Movie Film Podcast.